He did everything right, got the degree, landed the dream job, climbed every ladder they put in front of him. And 10 years later, he realized he was trapped. He made good choices, every single one of them, and every single one locked him deeper into a path he could no longer leave. This happens to smart people all the time. Doctors who hate medicine, lawyers who dread Monday, investors who can't sell a losing position. There is a name for this pattern, and over the next few minutes, you will learn three things: the hidden psychology behind it, a story of a company that invented the future and gave it away, and one rule that changes how you make every decision. In 1973, a team of engineers at Xerox built something no one had ever seen: a personal computer with a mouse, windows, and icons, a decade before anyone else. They called it the Alto. It could do things that would take the rest of the world 10 years to catch up with. But Xerox was a copier company. Copiers made money. The Alto did not. In 1979, a young Steve Jobs walked into Xerox PARC for a demonstration. He saw the graphical interface, he saw the mouse, and within minutes, he knew he was looking at the future of computing. Xerox had the future sitting in their own building. They could have owned personal computing. Instead, they let a 24-year-old walk out the door with it. 4 years later, Apple launched the Macintosh. Xerox had some of the smartest engineers alive, and that is exactly why they could not move. You might think this only happens to big companies. It does not. It happens to you every time you stay in a job because you have already spent 3 years building a reputation there. There is a name for this in Silicon Valley: golden handcuffs. The stock options vest over 4 years. The salary is too good to walk away from, so you stay, and you keep staying. It happens in relationships too. You have been together for 7 years, you own a house, your families are intertwined. Leaving would cost too much, so you stop asking whether you should. And it happens with money. You bought a stock at $100, it drops to 50, you hold on. It drops to 20, you hold harder. You are no longer investing, you are just refusing to admit you were wrong. The pattern is always the same: a good start, rising costs, shrinking options, and one day you wake up and realize the walls closed in so slowly you never noticed. Psychologists call it path dependence. Every decision you make narrows your future options. The first few steps feel like freedom, but soon the walls close in. Researchers tested this with a simple game. They gave people two doors on a screen. One paid more than the other, but if you ignored a door for too long, it disappeared. People kept clicking the bad door just to keep it open. They lost money to avoid losing options. Then sunk cost kicks in. You have already invested 5 years, so you invest 5 more. The path stopped being right a long time ago, but leaving feels like waste. Think about it this way: a golden title, a corner office, a salary you cannot say no to. You take the deal, and 3 years in, you realize the exit door was bricked shut the moment you walked in. Think about your own life for a second. Is there something you are holding on to right now just because you have already put too much into it? A career, a project, a belief? You already know the answer. A wrong decision you can fix tomorrow. A decision you cannot undo will fix you. So what do you do instead? You stop looking for the perfect plan, because no plan survives reality. Instead, you pick the one where fixing mistakes costs you the least. Here are 3 questions to ask before any big decision. First, if this goes wrong, how hard is it to reverse? Second, am I choosing this because I want to or because I already started? Third, what would I do if I could start over with zero cost? Before you take that promotion, ask yourself, can I walk away in 2 years? Before you double down on a losing bet, ask yourself, what is the cost of changing course? Most people think flexibility means weakness, that you cannot commit. Look at the people who take the biggest risks. They all have one thing in common: they know they can recover. The smartest move in any uncertain situation is a small experiment. Try the new job for 6 months before burning bridges. Test the business idea on weekends before quitting your day job. Warren Buffett keeps billions in cash. People call it lazy. He calls it optionality. When the 2008 crash came, everyone else was trapped. He had the cash to buy Goldman Sachs at a discount. Cash buys you one thing that matters more than returns: readiness. The person with options can say yes when the perfect opportunity arrives. Everyone else has to pass because they are locked in. Think of your life as 3 types of capital. Financial capital is your money. Social capital is your relationships. Human capital is your skills. The person who invests in all 3 has the most exits available. Here is a simple test. Can you describe your value in one sentence without mentioning your job title? If you cannot, your identity is trapped inside your role, and that makes leaving feel impossible. Flexible people build habits that keep doors open. They learn one new skill every year. They have lunch with people outside their industry. They save enough to survive 6 months without income. Small moves that add up. Your environment shapes your decisions more than your willpower does. If everyone around you is locked in, you will feel crazy for wanting to leave. Find people who have made bold moves. Their stories will make yours feel possible. Flexibility compounds. The more options you keep open today, the more options you will have tomorrow. Rigidity compounds too, but in the wrong direction. You do not need to have everything figured out. You just need to stay in a position where you can figure it out as you go. Sounds easy in theory, but I know a man who proved it works, twice, with two spectacular failures. Now let me tell you about a man who failed at the same thing twice, and both failures made him a billionaire. In 2002, Stuart Butterfield set out to build an online game called Game Never Ending. It was strange, complicated, and nobody wanted to play it. He could not raise any money. The game was dead. But inside that failed game, players had been sharing photos with each other. Butterfield looked at that feature and thought, this is what people actually want. He pulled it out and turned it into Flickr. Yahoo bought it for $20 million. A few years later, he tried again. Another game. This one was called Glitch. Same dream, better technology. It still failed. In 2012, he shut it down. But while building Glitch, his team had created an internal chat tool to communicate with each other. It was fast, organized, and people loved using it. Sound familiar? Another failed game. Another side project that turned into gold. That tool became Slack. By 2019, Slack went public. In 2021, Salesforce acquired it for $27.7 billion, all from a chat tool that was never supposed to be the product. Here is the part most people miss about Butterfield. He did not just stumble onto Flickr and Slack by accident. He watched what his users actually did instead of what they were supposed to do. That is where the signal was hiding. When he decided to pivot from Glitch to Slack, he did not spend months planning. He gave his team 2 weeks to build a prototype. They shipped it, tested it, and iterated. Speed was the strategy. And here's the beautiful part. Everything Butterfield learned from building games, managing communities, handling server loads, it all transferred directly into building Slack. His failures were not wasted years. They were training. Butterfield and Xerox had the same level of talent. The gap was flexibility. When the game died, he did not double down. He looked at what was working and followed that signal. Twice. Xerox had the future and could not let go of the past. Butterfield had failures and could not stop finding the future inside them. Same intelligence, completely different outcomes, all because of one word: flexibility. Every setback carries a hidden signal. The people who find it are the ones who stay flexible enough to look for it. So the question is not whether you will face setbacks. The question is what you will do when you find the signal. Xerox asked none of these questions. They looked at the copier profits and the uncertain future of personal computing. They chose comfort. Butterfield asked all three. He chose the door that opened the most doors. Let me show you how this works in practice. A friend of mine was offered a VP role at a big company. Great title, great pay, but a 4-year lock-in with a non-compete clause. He said no. He took a smaller role at a startup. Less money, less prestige, full flexibility. 2 years later, that startup got acquired. He walked away with more money and 0 strings attached. Here is something you can do today. Write down the 3 biggest commitments in your life right now. For each one, ask yourself, if I wanted to leave in 6 months, could I? If the answer is no, that is where your trap is. The goal is to choose commitments that grow with you. The right path keeps opening doors. That is how you know it is right. A woman I know spent 8 years in consulting. She was good at it, but every year she felt smaller. She quit, spent a year learning to code, and now runs her own product studio. She told me the hardest part was the first week. Everything after that got easier. A teacher I met left his stable government job at 40 to start a tutoring business. His family thought he was crazy. 3 years later, he makes twice the money and works half the hours. He said the only thing he regrets is not doing it sooner. These stories all share one thing. The first year is hard. The second year gets better. By the third year, the new path is already paying more than the old one ever could. Flexibility has a slow start but a steep curve. You do not need to quit your job tomorrow. You do not need to blow up your life. Start with one small experiment this week, one conversation, one skill, one question you have been avoiding. That is enough to start, because the cost of waiting is not zero. Every week you stay locked in is a week you could have spent building something free. The best decision makers I have seen share one habit. They never trade away their ability to change direction. They would rather take a smaller win today than a bigger one that pins them down. The smartest people never get trapped. They are no smarter than anyone else. They just always leave themselves a way out.